Good morning. My name is Anant Garola, and I'm the head of operational excellence for Walmart e-commerce customer care, and speaking with all of you virtually from Dallas, Texas today. And I'd like to start out by asking you a question. How do you explain that some organizations are able to build a sustainable culture of continuous improvement while others struggle to maintain the status quo? I'd like to once again welcome everyone to the Future Warehouse and Logistics Conference and a virtual good morning to everybody. It is unfortunate that we're all meeting virtually, though it is quite appropriate for the theme of this conference. If you really think about it, every area of the supply chain that all of us here represent have been under pressure to rethink the frameworks within which we function, starting with our reason for existing as a part of the supply chain. This process of change has actually been going on for the past decade or so, and it's only been accelerated by the current pandemic. So yes, it is quite appropriate that we're meeting virtually to discuss the future. So anyway, back to the question at hand. Why is it that some organizations are able to have an effective, sustainable, continuous improvement program that's part of the organizational DNA, while others really struggle? Over the past 2 decades, this is a question that I've pondered deeply myself as I've navigated across industries like e-commerce, pharmaceutical, consumer healthcare, automotive, and energy. I spent a number of years in different roles across the supply chain before specializing in operations excellence. So I really got to experience the user end of a continuous improvement program. As a field engineer with GE, I used to wonder what value all those Six Sigma Green Belt projects really added. It wasn't until I did a black belt role with them that I saw the true value of GE's strong approach to analytics and the belief that anything you measure will improve. Later in my career, as a plant manager with Cummins Engine Company, I cynically questioned the benefit of spending 2 years deploying a lean program with the Cummins operating system. It really was an arduous journey, and we were coached by a very well-respected Mr. C. Narasimhan of the Confederation of Indian Industry. And the goal was to leverage the strength of our 500 shop floor employees through total employee engagement and make our factory more visual and improve material flows. It really wasn't until the end of the journey when our factory employees shared stories of how the increased empowerment and leadership engagement had transformed their day-to-day work and really allowed them to spend more time working on the things they enjoy that I understood the true impact. For me, that was a breakthrough moment. I realized that the true value of continuous improvement wasn't the financial impact to the business, it wasn't the reduced inventory, or even the improved efficiency. A good CI program makes life easier for the employees that touch the product by allowing them to do more of the things they like and less of the things they don't. It really is that simple. While working for GSK, I had the chance to implement some of these learnings. I was part of the team that developed and deployed a brand new continuous improvement program that was geared towards the pharmaceutical industry, and it was called the GSK Production System. It was a tremendous journey that really underscored a lot of the learnings, the benefit of selecting the right tools for the job, and the risk of assuming that there's a one-size-fits-all solution when you're talking about continuous improvement. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to share with you a simple hypothesis around driving sustainable improvement programs in any industry. It's about flow and alignment. There's no doubt that every organization can benefit from a structured continuous improvement program. It's also true that sustaining an improvement culture is exponentially more difficult than kicking off a new program. A successful improvement program has the ability to create an organizational culture where individuals constantly learn and improve, resulting in an improved business performance. This last part is of critical importance and is also the starting point of our flow. Business performance should be the starting point when we ask ourselves why we need an improvement program. So before we really kick things off, in the spirit of transparency, it would only be fair to add a little disclaimer here. So the views that I'm presenting here, these reflect my views. They don't really reflect views of my present or past employers. And some of the comments that I make are not really directed towards any particular organization. So, having said that, our flow journey begins with an understanding of why. Why do you need an improvement program? The first and probably the most important question in the entire improvement journey is the why. Why does the organization need any kind of continuous improvement program? There isn't really necessarily one right answer to this question, but there are a number of wrong ones. So understanding the why starts with knowing challenges and opportunities for the business and ensuring these strategic priorities flow into the choice of the improvement vehicle that we make. Questions like, what are the critical issues that need to be addressed through the program? Is there a burning platform that goes across the entire organization today, which can help align resources to flow in one direction? And while a burning platform is great for getting people to see the need for a continuous improvement program, it also runs the risk of relegating our initiative to a life of firefighting, preventing us from taking the time and effort from creating the learning culture that's needed to sustain the effort. So based on where the business is in their operational journey, it is more important for them to develop a culture of continuous improvement, or sometimes it's more important for the organization to get some quick wins that hit the bottom line. At the end of the day, urgent always wins over important. And when you have the same resources responsible for delivering tangible improvements and also building the culture, there's a strong risk that leadership will drive the resources to focus solely on doing improvements that show quick, tangible results. Now, depending on where the organization is in their business cycle, it's okay to change the balance between doing projects versus building capability. At the end of the day, when your house is burning, you don't really spend time teaching your kids what to do in the event of an emergency. You just put out the fire. So, understanding all of this, are business leaders across the entire organization, so not just the supply chain, but across the whole organization, willing to commit resources to support the improvements? This could include functions that traditionally we don't think about, HR and finance. Now, these are all questions that need to be considered before deciding on a path. And more often than not, the question around critical improvement areas results in this huge laundry list of things that need to be fixed. Squash between increasing customer expectations and competitive pressure to drive down cost, there is no dearth of issues that the business would like to fix. In fact, the risk is that leaders will enthusiastically support an improvement program with the unrealistic expectation that everything is a top priority and that everything is going to be improved. Is this really realistic? I mean, can an organization deliver step change improvements on multiple fronts at the same time? The honest answer is no. Now, let me add this. Just because something isn't an improvement priority, it doesn't mean you ignore it. There may be a dozen priorities the team has, but real leadership is the ability to eliminate the noise and help the team focus on those two or three things that need to be covered by the improvement program right now. So don't ignore the rest. If it isn't one of your top focus areas, put your energy into maintaining performance, but not necessarily making that step change improvement. So why the business needs an improvement program then flows into understanding what resources and the level of commitment required to deliver the expected results. Business leaders should understand that there is always an opportunity cost to deploying any improvement program. I've seen many organizations fail in deploying operational excellence since they underestimate the effort required to sustaining such a program. Sometimes in the excitement of doing something new, it's easy to launch the program and generate lots of short-term engagement because it's a new initiative. But without an understanding of the commitment required to sustain the effort, leadership can very quickly get disillusioned with the lack of results and move on to something new. So the willingness to commit resources is directly proportional to the why. If the organization sees a strong reason for deploying a Lean Six Sigma program, then the resources will automatically follow. Sometimes, as improvement leaders, in our enthusiasm to align stakeholders, we fall into this trap of overemphasizing the benefits while underplaying the level of engagement required. The next step is choosing an aligned improvement vehicle to drive your organization's agenda. Now, by this point, the organization knows why they want to drive a continuous improvement program and how that aligns with the overall business strategy. They should have already aligned the stakeholder expectations around what improvements need to be delivered and when those resources and when those improvements are going to be delivered. Now is the time to select the appropriate methodology and ensure it's aligned to the goals selected, aligned to the organizational culture, and aligned to the expected deliverables. So this is a great time to speak about the importance of organization culture when it comes to identifying the appropriate way to drive improvement. So one of the attributes I loved about GE was a very strong learning culture. Leadership at every level was extremely agile when it came to change. And as a consequence, when Six Sigma was the chosen methodology, you could see leaders at every level of the organization quickly embracing data-based approach to problem solving. Now, on the flip side, I've been part of organizations which value independent thought over unquestioning discipline. So I'm not advocating one approach over the other, but this is something that needs to be taken into consideration when you're developing the framework for your continuous improvement program. Now, I've seen CI programs fail when they're depending on quick adoption by leaders, but the culture of the company is more risk averse, where change management in general is a much slower process. Now, once you've aligned the goals, selected the organizational culture, and the expectation around deliverables, we need to understand which of the many available vehicles the business is going to use to drive these improvements. So I love this vehicle analogy. It's a great one to help demystify improvement programs. So you talk to any Lean Six Sigma expert and you'll hear a slew of terms that sound really cool. Six Sigma, PDCA, Gemba, Kanban, A3, etc., etc. The list goes on and on. And I don't propose to go through an analysis of these terms, but these are all pieces of our improvement vehicle. The first step in seeing which of these pieces are appropriate for our improvement journey is identifying the destination and our goal. And yes, the destination and goal are two separate points. So my destination may be Dubai, but my main goal could either be to enjoy the many tourist attractions, or it could be to network with the participants of the conference. And one could argue that both are possible, but I really believe that knowing the primary goal helps flow into clear prioritization of actions. The first opportunity for error is when your vehicle isn't aligned to the journey. I mean, it wouldn't really make sense to take a Ferrari on a trip to the Great Sandy Desert, would it? And this is probably one of the most important decisions you will make on your continuous improvement journey. And unfortunately, the seeds of what you sow today as a bad decision won't really blossom until much, much further along in the journey, by which point it's too late to really change gears. So for a smooth improvement journey, make sure you spend the time to select the right improvement methodology. Don't get seduced by the latest buzzword and beware of deploying an over-engineered solution. Now, this is a mistake that smart people often make, thinking that the most complex solution is the best one. But more often than not, the simplest solution, well executed, is the right answer. Now remember, there is no free lunch. And eventually, you'll have to justify that cool, expensive sports car you buy just for going to the supermarket. So I've spoken a lot about flow and alignment. Ensuring that we have a self-sustaining improvement flywheel. The business strategy should flow seamlessly into the improvement methodology and top areas of focus. Now it's time to talk about the most important piece, the engine that drives this flow of continuous improvement within our organization is all about leadership, leadership, leadership. Of the many factors that have to be taken into account when developing and deploying a continuous improvement program, I've listed 3. These aren't necessarily the most important factors, since much of that depends on where your organization is in the improvement journey and your short and long-term priorities. However, there is one variable that is critical to the success of an improvement program in any organization, no matter where they are in the operational excellence spectrum. Yep, you guessed it. Leadership, leadership, leadership. I've said it 3 times, not just to emphasize the importance of leadership in the success of continuous improvement, but also because there are 3 aspects of leadership worth highlighting. The first requirement of leadership, finding the balance between expertise and curiosity. Now, these 2 attributes aren't mutually exclusive. One can be both an expert and curious. But in the context of driving our improvement engine, it's important that leaders engage have at least one or the other. Either the expertise to lead a lean program and understand the importance of investing in the culture, or the genuine curiosity to trust their lean deployment team and ask the right questions. Sometimes good leadership is just about asking the right questions and bringing a healthy dose of common sense. Another great word for common sense in this context is alignment. It's surprising how often asking the right questions will surface a fundamental lack of alignment in activities being done across the value chain. So the first maxim of leadership, don't let your continuous improvement agenda fail because leaders don't have the technical capability or they lack the confidence to be curious. This feeds into the larger organizational culture, where it's okay to raise your hand and say you don't know, where it's encouraged to swing for the fences, even if that means missing once in a while. The next leadership pitfall, top down versus bottoms up. So nobody would disagree that leaders play a critical role in the success of a continuous improvement program. The difference between success and failure lies in knowing what kind of engagement we expect from our leaders during this journey. So one approach is to deploy with a bottoms-up approach in mind, which means the lean change management team focuses on engaging the frontline leaders that are closest to the value stream. The theory being that once leaders see the results of improvements made by line level employees, it'll drive increased buy-in from senior stakeholders. Now, the difficulty here lies in effectively engaging the frontline employees if they're not getting explicit or implicit direction from their managers. In the absence of strong leader engagement, they will lose focus. Another approach has been actively engaging the senior leaders and relying on them to drive your improvement agenda to the front line. Since in this scenario, your improvement resources are focused on change management at a leadership level, you may get some really good initial exposure and engagement. The challenge will be the time it takes to build leadership capability and get business improvements through this purely top-down approach. So the solution is a mix of both. Again, keeping in mind the business goals and the organizational culture. Which brings us to the second rule. Avoid the death spiral for any continuous improvement program by engaging all levels of leaders within your company. Now, expectations from leaders in an effective CI program, sort of the whole do versus delegate discussion. So we have established it's important for leaders at every level to be engaged in the improvement program. But what does good engagement look like? In a culture of delegation, there is a risk each level of leadership feels their role is to enable others to participate in the improvement program. So more often than not, leaders interpret good problem solving as a cascade of delegation until the person in the chain closest to the value addition is the one doing all the improvements. So similar to the trickle-down theory, this leads the lowest level of leadership in the organization to be doing all the heavy lifting when it comes to driving excellence, a recipe for disaster. Typically, this individual on the front line is also the leader doing the most value addition and should be focusing on day-to-day activities of the business. So it's absolutely true that without engagement from the people that touch the product, you're not going to surface the real issues or get tangible solutions that have an impact on the bottom line. At the same time, without active engagement of the senior leaders, you'll have difficulty sustaining the sparks of enthusiasm that you generate. It is important for the engagement to be meaningful. Surface engagement that's akin to window dressing will be seen through by the rank and file very quickly. If leaders get into this trap of blessing improvement activities versus being actively engaged, it can result in this check the box kind of environment where non-value added activities are abound. This balance of do versus delegate is dynamic. So it'll change over time, it'll change depending on where the leader fits within your framework. And at the outset, it is important to clearly identify expectations from different leaders in the organization when it comes to participating in the improvement program. It can be very risky to assume that leaders are aware and capable of what needs to be done to drive the program. So, to bring us back to the initial question asked, how do you explain that some organizations are able to build a sustainable culture of continuous improvement while others struggle to maintain the status quo? It all comes down to ensuring all the different pieces flow into each other. Having a clear understanding of the business priorities and the current top opportunities for the organization, while also clearly selecting the few areas for step change improvements. Being clear as an organization on the expected returns, their timings, and the specific resources required to achieve the goals. And then knowing which framework of change management fits best within the culture of the company. And most importantly, engaging leaders across the whole organization in the right kind of improvement activities to build not only their improvement skills, but those of the entire organization. While I may not have convinced all of you, I hope to have given you food for thought. The answer to our question lies not in selecting the perfect improvement vehicle, but in ensuring each of the different components flow harmoniously to create this unstoppable improvement engine. Thank you all for listening to me today. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference, and God willing, we will all meet in person someday. Thank you.